voice. So the rule is you can't ask it to me. You have to ask somebody else. And I've got a whole list of questions. So if you guys don't have questions, I'm going to start asking. Angela, you got a question? No, you were just stretching. All right, yes, Pete.
All right, most of us here are interested in improving, otherwise we wouldn't be here.
Absolutely.
So I would like you to suggest one drill I can do by myself if I have a table at home that would help me to get a little better.
All right, who would you like to ask that question to? Chance? All right, here you go. So the question is, he's got a table and he's got a robot at home, but nobody to play with. What would be the number one drill he should do at home?
So if you have a robot, I think the first thing that a lot of people make a mistake of is working on your stroke without movement. So I would say doing some simple movement drills, whether it's like one forehand, one middle, or one backhand, one middle, being able to work on the technique while you're moving is super important. If you don't have a robot, serve practice is really like one of the big things that's super neglected by especially a lot of players in the US. When I was young, that was one of my main things that I worked on a lot because I didn't have a lot of practice partners. So working on your serve and being able to serve to different locations and have a lot of variation is one of the fastest way to improve.
All right, I've got a question for Derek. So obviously people have played against choppers before, but there's different types of choppers. So what kind of different variations of choppers are there out there, and how should they play differently against different types of choppers?
Okay. I really think of there are two types of choppers. I can think of three types really. One is the classic chopper that returns every ball. They just run around, they get the ball back. When you play a chopper like that, you don't have to be impatient. You should be patient, keep the ball on the table, wait for your opportunity, and then put the ball away. So the chopper that does not attack, that's one that you have to be you can be patient. You don't need to rush. Another chopper is a more aggressive chopper. I like to think I'm in that category. I chop on both sides, but I'm looking for opportunities to attack. So with a chopper like that, you have to be a little more careful about being passive because you don't want to find yourself on the defense all the time, but it's all about shot selection. So Nandan and I were playing together today, and he did a great job of giving me short balls, soft loops, fast loops, drop shots, and mixing it up and keeping me going in and out and side to side, but never really giving me a chance to take an easy offensive shot. So you did a nice job with that. And then the third kind of chopper is a lot of choppers today are playing this way where they loop on their forehands and they chop just on their backhand side. So if you're good against chop, if you feel confident against chop and long pips or short pips, whatever they use there, then I would recommend that you loop and you play offense into their backhand, force them to chop and pin them over there, and then look for your opportunity to take it wide to their forehand. So, thanks.
Excellent, great answer. All right, next question. Johnset, you got a good one for me? Peter. All right, I got another question. So, Damien, how many times have you played the French nationals in your whole life? Senior, yeah. Okay, so he's played between 12 to 15 times the French national championships, and he's done okay. But somehow, at the ripe old age of 30-something, he finished number 3 in all of France last year, which is like an unbelievable accomplishment. And let's give him a round of applause. And I'm just wondering what happened. Did you have some kind of a change in your game? Was it just an amazing draw that nobody showed up? Was it the fact that you played smarter than everybody else? But what was your secret?
I think it's a combination of many things. Globally, I feel the mental part is very important. And during this competition, I was with my family, and I stayed a little bit far away with my family, and I was mentally prepared well. I trusted my game, And I think the mental part in table tennis, if we feel the mental part is good, and if we feel like we arrive in the competition, we don't really want to play, or we feel like a little bit passive, our level will be very, very different. And I think it's something very important in table tennis to find a way, we are all different, to find a way to be happy to be here and to have fun, you know. And when I feel in the mood I have more fun and I'm happy to be here to fight, I will move faster, my brain will think faster, and I think it's really one of the things that helped me is like to really be happy to be here, to share the moment. Of course that there is many details, but for me it's one of the main things. Like if I can quickly say a second thing, it's like, okay, even so I'm 37 and I'm getting older, it's to always not lose, not feel like discouraged. When I have a period of 2-3 months I don't play good, so okay, that's normal. In our lives we all play a little bit, sometimes good, a little bit sometimes bad, but the goal is to always find a solution, not to give up. Like, oh, like 2 months can be sometimes long, you know, when we feel bad, but it's like, okay, let's find the solutions little by little. And I think that's what at this age I play maybe the best level I ever played. So
Excellent, good.
All right. Anybody else cooking up any good questions? Pat, you got a good one for me? Yeah, I knew it. That's good. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, so this is a really great question, and I'm looking for somebody who's brave enough to answer. Jeff, Shigong, Blake, Seth, anybody want to answer? Why is it that maybe at his level, he should be more stable and not use much wrist, but when he sees a lot of like higher level players are using more wrist? So why is that as far as developmentally? Seth?
Here we go.
So the question was that he should use less wrist to be more stable?
At what point should he use more wrist in his backhand? At what point should he start doing that?
I think that it's important to maybe slowly develop to that. I mean, most players start with very low wrist, and the more confident they get, the looser it gets, and the more you think they're using wrist. But if you ask a pro, they feel very similarly to how they did before. There's just they're a lot more relaxed, and there's more fluidity throughout the wrist. So maybe just keep practicing and let it be relaxed and let it get longer as you feel more confident. Would you say that's...
I would agree. Yeah.
One other thing, the depth of the ball changes this a lot. So say if you look at Seth or Sid or Damien, when they play a flip over the table, they're going to use a lot more wrist than if they're playing just like a clean topspin ball off a block. So this can vary pretty drastically as well.
All right, Blake's got something too. That's good.
You know, I keep saying this over to some of these people like that. I mean, a lot of people, especially when they're starting, you need to focus on having a stable elbow on the back end. I mean, if you watch some of the good players here, you'll see that their elbow is pretty stable. And they're using a lot of wrist, but at the same time, their elbow is in a good position and not kind of flying all over the place. So I know I've said it to like my group several times. I mean, I'd like to tell people to use the wrist almost right away, but the main thing is the stable elbow, not the in and out. And I can tell you from my own experience, you know, I've had tennis elbow when I started because I was using a lot of in and out movement on my backhand. As soon as I was able to get my elbow a lot more stable, my elbow was fine. I did not have any kind of physical problems there again.
All right, my question is here for Coach Shigong. You're playing with short pips, so if one of them plays against a short pips opponent, is there any particular things, maybe one or two things, that they should do different than if they play against a normal, smooth rubber opponent?
Okay, if you play with short pips, you know, it's my feeling, which is difficult for me if people doing fast use more power, I like short pips want to use people's power to return ball. Sometimes the ball will be dead ball, as like underspin, heavy underspin ball comes back. So when you play with short pips, you have to be slow down, make more top spin, then make short pips to only to adjust the spin to. Then the next ball you can step in because the ball will be slow down and short. Next ball you have to use the step in and use your own power to more forward to kill that ball.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that you mentioned the stepping in because after our warm-up, we're going to be talking a little bit about that in and out footwork on why that's important. And one of the things that we're going to refer to is what he said with playing against short pips. You have to be more adjustable as far as the depth than if you're playing against a normal inverted with smooth rubber. I have a question for Jeff. This is unbelievable, but he was around 25-50 level with penhold, and suddenly one day he decided to switch to shake hands, and he's like 25-50 level with shake hands. So it's funny that after playing so many years, you could completely change your style. But the question that I have for Jeff is, some of them are asking me about a style change. They're like, Samson, I've played this way for 5 years, and I want to change to a different style. What are some reasons to change or not change? And what kind of things do they have to balance in their mind if they're thinking about changing styles?
So I believe it all depends on the goal, right? So different people have different styles, right? Different strength, different weakness, and for sure for the styles also true. So if you play penholder, you're gonna have gonna have better skills in one thing, but you're gonna lose some in other parts. And if you switch to shaken, that's also gonna happen. So it all depends what your goals are, right? So if you wanna play for example, most penholders they look more for their forehand, so they have to have a better footwork, they have to move more. But if you want to play more stable, you don't want to move as much, maybe you should switch to shaken so you have a better backhand or more variation. But some players also, they have really good chop block or backhand, traditional backhand, right, where you can do a lot of variations to and then set up for the forehand. So it's all depend on your goals, your style, and you always have to balance out what you're gonna lose, what you're gonna win with that change. And yeah, and then we have to decide which one is better for you and where are you aiming for. So.
And I'm glad that you mentioned goals. All of us should have goals, long-term, short-term, and medium-term. And the goals should determine how much you're ready to practice. You should have a set schedule that you're looking to do every week. But this schedule is going to depend on what the goals are. If you're 1850 and your lifetime goal is that you want to break 1900 someday, you probably don't have to do too much different than you're currently doing. If you're 1850 and your goal is to move up 5 levels, okay, you're going to have to adjust your schedule as far as what you're doing in order to be able to reach that goal. So I'm glad that Jeff mentioned goals. Goals should be fueling everything that we do, the focus that we have, the practice that we have. This is really important. All right, we've got time for about 2 more questions. Yes. What's up, Noah?
So for training, as far as doing drills and training,
Yeah.
I personally train mostly with these 2 guys, and
Great training partners.
and David just recently switched to short pips, and of course I find it different to do drills with him walking with the short pips. Is there anything you would say about the percentage I should be practicing against the block of short pips, to develop the muscle memory? I would think since most players do play with smooth rubber, should I be thinking about the percentage of the training that I do off of the short pips versus the smooth rubber?
About 14 years ago, I didn't have anybody to practice with in Ohio. I was coaching, and I wanted to find somebody that I could practice with. And there was this guy in Tennessee, and he had short pips, and I would go down from time to time and practice with him. It's him. And so when I would go down to Tennessee and practice with him, I would feel that, okay, temporarily it threw my game off playing with short pips too much because I felt like, oh, the timing is different, this and that. But what ended up happening is I developed the ability to adjust more in and out, and it forced me to generate more spin than I was used to because I hit my normal shot, I didn't have enough control. So temporarily it felt like it wasn't as good, but it forced me to be more adjustable. So long term, I would say it's great. Just short term, you have to realize that it's not going to carry over one for one. If you practice with him for a week and then you go out and you play one match with Sarah, it's going to feel a little bit different. So it's always a matter of adjusting, but you have to do a good job with this. You have to adjust from opponent to opponent to opponent to opponent, but long-term development, practicing with short pips is a very good thing. And Chance and I have talked about this a lot. Almost every player at my club growing up and almost every player at his club growing up was short pips, long pips, or anti. There was almost nobody with inverted on both sides. So as a kid, he and I both started when we were 12. It's really hard to go there and lose and lose and lose, and it's kind of frustrating. But if you can get through it, it actually makes you develop better than if you just play against clean styles. All right, we've got time for one more question. Kim?
Can you talk a little bit about the decision to start using pips?
That's a great question. Seth or Chance, who wants to answer? The decision to start using pips or not. Chance, here we go. Last question of the day.
So this goes kind of hand in hand with what Jeff was talking about as far as like the pros and cons. So it depends on your style and how you like to play and what your strengths are. Say if you're staying close to the table and you're kind of like a pick hitter and you're not using a lot of spin, then short pips could suit you really well. Or say you're going back from the table a lot and you like to kind of chop or lob, changing to like a chopping style could make sense for you. But as far as like for most of us that play a pretty clean game, it would be more of just like what's your goal as far as like, are we trying to slow the game down? Or because like a lot of players, especially a little bit older players, change to long pips or to anti to slow the game down a little bit so that they don't have to move quite as fast. But I would say if that's the only reason to do it, that's not that good of a reason, because you can learn to control the ball better with smooth rubber. I would say, just going back to the pros and cons, how you like to play and what your style is, short pips, long pips, or anti is better suited for certain things.
All right, great job, guys. If you have any other questions, feel free to hang on to those, and then probably when we go back each day after lunch break, we'll just do at the table, like just real quick 2 or 3 minute question answer time. So even if it's something that's not related to what we're talking about for the theme of the week, feel free to ask. I like good questions. The reason I like good questions is it tells me that you're thinking about the sport, you're thinking specifically about your game and how to make progress. So I like great questions. All right, we are going to go out there and do our warm-up and stretching. So go ahead and grab your rackets.